I'm Patrick Bailey with whiteboardcoder.com. Today is December 26, 2017, and in this video I'm going to be going over how to use Amazon AWS Lambda tool to forward a webhook message to a Slack room. Okay, before I dive right into it, I want to kind of go over a little more details of what I'm trying to do. Now Slack, you can set up Slack to have an incoming webhook, and what that means is once you have it set up, they'll give you a special URL, and you can send messages to it in a certain format, and those messages will come out in a Slack room. And I've actually done a few videos on that. It's a really good tool. It works really great. Now, how do you get messages there? Of course, you can run your own custom code and send messages there. But what happens if you're using some kind of service? And in this little diagram I have PagerDuty and Distilio as examples. But there's plenty of other services out there that have webhooks. When some kind of event occurs, you can put a custom webhook that will send a message to another server that you have. And PagerDuty and Distilio can send a message in their own format or some kind of custom format to, let's say, a server you set up. It'll intercept that message and do something with it. But what happens if you just want to, when that event occurs, if you just want to send a message to a Slack room, as simple as that? There's a few different things that could occur. One, you might have something like PagerDuty, which, yes, you can have custom webhooks, but they also have webhooks, outgoing webhooks that are Slack aware. And so you can basically say, I want an outgoing webhook to go to a Slack incoming webhook, and here's where it is, and it will just all work just fine, and the PagerDuty will do the correct format that Slack understands. There are other things like Distilio, which I recently did because someone asked a question about it, where it has a customizable outgoing webhook, and it's actually done in such a way that you can tweak it enough to get a Slack message to work. It's not Slack aware, it doesn't do it for you, you have to tweak it yourself. And it doesn't give you endless possibilities, but it gives you enough where you can actually tweak it and customize it to actually make a Slack message. But Distilio does nothing special for you, where PagerDuty does. And there may be other services out there like that. Now, another thing might happen where someone may have an outgoing webhook, but they don't have any way to customize it. And so if that's the case, and you actually want it to go to a Slack room, you have to have something sit in the middle and intercept it. Now, you could put your own server there and bring the messages and message in and send it out. But in this example, we use something a little simpler. Once you get it set up, it's simpler. You don't have to babysit it. To use Amazon Lambda to put our code out there, which will run basically as a RESTful service, and intercept that message and transform it into a Slack message. And there you go. So you can get exactly what you want for cases where either there is no way to customize the outgoing webhook to make it Slack compatible, or you actually want it to do some kind of specialized format beyond what you might be able to do. Like with Distilio, you can customize it, but there are some limitations. So with that, let's get going. Okay, now to create the custom Lambda with a custom API gateway. So go here into your Amazon Web Services and search for Lambda, which actually was already on. But you go there and click on Create a Function. Now, for those who may not be familiar with Amazon Lambda, what it is a place you can put a bit of code that you intend to run really quickly, and then Amazon will take care of the rest for you. They'll provision the servers and whatever else needs to be done, and a little bit of code can run. It's only supposed to run for a few seconds. 10 seconds would be a very long-running code in Amazon Lambda world. But it's a place you can put the code and don't have to worry about it. The high availability and all those kind of things. It'll just run when it's called. In this case, we're using the web interface, but you can, I think they have some things that'll call it via curl and other things like that, which I haven't got into, but just to let you know it can be used for other things. So from here, we'll click on Author from Scratch. We'll give it a name, My Webhook to Slack, right? And I'll choose Node.js, but you can choose a few other languages, C#, Java 8, a few things like that. And down here, I will choose from existing roles. And then down here, I'll just choose the Lambda basic execution. You can give some very complex permissions to Lambda. For example, if you wanted to have access to an S3 bucket, you have to give permissions to an S3 bucket. But in my case, I don't need any access to anything because I'll just be forwarding a message along. So I don't need any special access to anything in the Amazon world, except for the basic execution. So I'll click on that and create a function. And the next thing I need to do is, here's my webhook. And if I go down here, I'll actually see here's the just default code they gave you, which isn't going to do much in this case. But right now I need a way to trigger it. So I'm going to use the API gateway, and that will give us our web interface into it. And so I'll just click on that. It shows up there. You can see how it connects in. So that's the way it triggers it. And if I go down here, I want to change a few things. Now, this is where I'm a little confused on what may or may not have been here, because I need a gateway API to be there. And I think there's this Lambda microservices already is there by default, I'm guessing. But if not, we may need to go make one. So just to show you how to make a gateway that you can choose from, let's go do that really quickly. So in case that's where you're at. Okay, so we'll search for API gateway. There we go. So open up API gateway. And I think I made a test one here, which I'll go delete. Yeah, webhook API gateway. Let me go quickly delete this one. WebHook API gateway. So delete that. Okay, so what you do is you come here and you click on, let me refresh that to get rid of it. You come here and you click on Create API. And so just have a new API, and I call it my webhook gateway API. Edge optimize is fine, and so we just create the API. And that's about all we need to do at this point. You can get fancier, but we don't need to get very fancy for what we're doing. So now it exists. And now if I go over here, I need to, well, at this point I need to refresh the page. Reload the page. And of course, when I reload it, the API gateway goes away because I actually hadn't saved it. So let me click on that again to add it again. And then come down here, and we will choose the My Webhook Gateway API I just chose, just created. So click on that. We'll leave it in production. For security, for this, we don't need to do much. We'll just leave it open, and that means anyone can access it. But the URL will be unique enough that no one should be privy to it. If you want to lock it down, you can go look up some stuff on how to use keys and limit your access if you want to. But for right now, for this purposes, leaving it open is probably good enough in most cases. Okay, so I'll click Add. And now after that, I have to click Save. And so once I click Save, I should be able to scroll down here, and now I have a webhook. So that is actually, if I call that URL, this should run. And just as a test, I'll show you this. It will fail in this case. There's a few things we got to fix. But if I run this, do a simple curl on that location, it'll actually run. We get an internal message error. And just to show that that should be the case, if I change this to something else, see, missing authentication tone, because that doesn't exist. So this is telling me from experience that it is working, I am getting to it, but I'm not doing the right thing. So the next thing we do is go fix that. Okay, so why didn't that work? I found this website on it, on the issue at hand, Solving AWS Lambda and API Gateway Internal Server Errors, and you can read up more on that, the specifics. But basically, we are not sending, the code is expecting a status code, header, and a body back from our code, which we're not sending it. So if you look at the drawing here, this API webhook is expecting some data to be sent back by our webhook data, which it's not getting. So if we go click on our code, we'll see it's not doing much. So I'm just going to copy and paste a few things in here so that I can get something working. Okay, so now what it's going to do is it's going to have this response it's going to send back. And this response will have the status code 200, the content type application JSON, and the body. And so if we save that, now we should actually get data back. So if I save that and I run it again, boom, we get back the body. Now in this particular case, if you're trying to set up some kind of JSON, that body coming back is just the text. So let's say we actually want to send some JSON back. So I'll give a really quick example of how to do that real quick. So if I come up here and I make a JSON object, so I'll just call it details. Copy what I currently have. Okay, so now I have that. So now I actually have some JSON object I can send, and I could put it in the body, but I need to stringify it first. So we can do JSON.stringify details. Oh, where am I done? Not right there. I can do that. Okay, so I can come down here to the body that I want to send to it, and I can send it to the details, but I want to stringify it. So JSON.stringify details. There we go. And so we'll save that. and then we'll return that. And there's our JSON. And I could pipe that out to a tool I use called JQ. And there we go. We can see we have the JSON. It's working just fine. So now that we've got it to actually do something, the next thing I want to go over is logging, because that's going to be very important in testing. Okay, monitoring and logs. If you come up here, you automatically get an Amazon CloudWatch log. So it's already actually logging somewhere. But it can get confusing on how to read the logs because it logs a lot of stuff beyond just your code. So what I'm going to do here is you can do console.log, and that'll log out to your logs. But you probably want to put some kind of key in here that's easy to look up. So I'll just put my log, colon, and then whatever my message is, right? Whatever I want to feedback. And so I'll save that. And then up here, if I go to the top, you can go to monitoring, and you can jump to the logs. And so a new window will open up, new tab. And in here, I can search my logs. Now this will just kind of do the current time, I think. Oh, it does all day. Oh, okay. Another choice I usually click on this and I say custom relative 2 hours. That way I know it's the current 2 hours. If I search for my log, right now I shouldn't see anything because I just added that. But if I call it again, and I'm going to add a -s in here to make it silent. So I call it again, come up here, refresh, and I don't have my log. Of course not. What did I write? Let me go back to my function. So configuration, there we go. Go down here and I'll see, oh, it's my log. Console my log. Okay, why aren't you working? Oh, it took it a second. Okay. So there it is. Just took a second to get into log files. So now if I open that, I see my log, whatever. And so it'll be really important as you're trying to decipher what's going on. Because the first thing you're probably going to do for your log, and I'll change this, is to look at the actual event that comes in, because that's something you're going to want to tear apart. This guy right here. And so right here we can do plus JSON.stringify event, so that I can actually read that. And so I will save that. We should be good. We'll call it again. And now if I go back to my CloudWatch and do refresh, might take it a second. Now we can see this is the information that's being sent to us. So in this case it's just a get, but down here we can see the body that's sent to us is null, so there's not much in there. And so here's what you'll need to look at the event object to decipher what's being sent to you. Anyway, so there's logging. So now on to the next thing. Okay, next thing is to get whatever webhook you're using to actually send a message to there. So the service I'm using is Distilio in this example. And so in this example, I have it monitoring a page to see if a web page changes. So if I go down here to something I've already set up, so I'm not going to go into any great detail about it. I can go down here and go, I can go down here and I guess edit options, right? Edit options, there we go. And I will delete that. And so I'll come down here in this case and add an action. And in this case, they say call a webhook. And all we need is a URL. So I'll go back over here to Lambda and see where my URL is. Let's see, do I have a nice way? Let's see, click on that. And there you go. There we go. There's a URL. So I'll copy that. Go back to my page. There we go. Place that in. But also, in this case, they have options. So these are the fields it's going to change. You can add headers in this example. But I'll kind of leave this as the default at this moment and just say, okay, send this. Save it. And so now what this will do is we'll monitor that page for changes. But it only monitors every 10 minutes. So I may have to sit here for a while until it actually sends something out. So if I go to this page, and I'll actually go into the code of that page and change it. Second test. There we go. And page is changed. And then now we'll check within the next 10 minutes. So there we are, 412. And oh, well, it should, no, 422, 432. It should be checking pretty quickly. Well, there we go. We detected a change, so it should have sent something off. So now if I go over to my CloudWatch, search for my log, we will see if we have anything that showed up. It may take a few seconds for it to get in there. And there we go. So now if I open up this guy, I'll go down to the bottom. So that webhook successfully called my Lambda, and there's the body of what it sent. There's all the information. Cool. So it sent it. So now the next thing to do is I could sit there and try to decipher the information, but what I'm going to do right now is now I know it's coming in, so now I'm going to go update the code to actually send a simple message out to a Slack room without even considering the message being sent to me. Okay, so I'm going to get to post to this room that I have in one of my Slack channels called Distilio, and so let me go update the code to actually do that. So if I go over here to my Lambda, let me click on that. And so what I'm going to do is tweak this code so that I can do those things. Let me see. There we go. So I'll come down here, and the first thing to do is put all is, what do I do? Well, let me do the options that I want to do. So I'll do a var, I'll put the data. So I'll put the data I'm actually going to put out there, and I'll say json.stringify, and then I'll put a JSON string in here because it's just simpler for me to do it. And I'll put the text. We're going to do a very simple object at first. And, oh, not text, testing it out. So there it is, testing it out. And there we also need to do a room. Let me see. And channel, there we go. So we'll do that, and we'll do channel. And so this is the Slack isms, right? So I'll do pound Distilio, and that's that name. That's the room. And so that should be enough to send my message. Well, that's the message I want to send Slack. Now the next thing I do is actually set up all the details. So let's see, var post options equals to, and we will do host is hooks.slack.com. And let me copy and paste this. It's take me a while to write it all out. And I might make a mistake like I did right there. Slack has a K. Okay, so here's what you do. So you have your host, hooks.slack.com, port 443. You need your service path, which is going to be your webhook, which I'll post to here in a second. The methods post, the application there. We get the byte buffer from the post data. And then the next thing we're going to do is actually set up the request. Let me do some cutting and pasting here. Boom. And so we have set up the request. Oh, we don't do that anymore. So I'll go to that. I'll set up the request. And UTF-8, function, console load, chunk. Let's see. Yep. There we go. And so, and then we write it out. We write the post data and then require the end. And here I'm not doing anything simple. I'm not doing a lot of checks or anything like that. And I'll just send the response code out again. So last thing I need to do is actually update my code here to actually be my URL, my webhook. So I'll copy and paste that in. Of course, I'll be covering it up because I don't want you guys messaging my room, right? Okay, boom. So now in theory, that should work. So let me save that. And we should get something to automatically post out there once I change the actual website. And we get a 10-minute delay there too, right? So we'll do third test. Third test, we'll save that. And we'll go over here and see that it actually did change. And then here, we'll refresh that. It was 4:33 last time it checked. And what time is it now? 4:40. So in 3 minutes, it should check again and should trigger that off. And it should send a message to my Slack room, but it's just going to send, it's not going to take any of the details of the event. It's just going to print out, testing it out in this case. So pretty simple. Well, looks like it found it. Let me see, it just didn't post it correctly. Yeah, got it. Okay. I have a problem with my code. Let me go fix my code and get this updated. Okay, I figured out what I did wrong. I did two things wrong. One, I forgot to include the HTTPS to require that library because I am using it. So you got to put this at the top to pull that in. Oops. Another thing I forgot to do is here at the bottom, where I was sending back the details, I erased that JSON object as details, so it doesn't exist. That's another problem. So I just changed it to OK for now. Just leave it like that and save it. Another thing we can do is you don't have to wait for the service to run. In this case where we are right now, because we're not doing anything special. So I can just go down here and do a simple curl command to that tool. And I should get messages back. So there we go. So I am getting Distilio messages. So I'm getting message in Slack from that tool. And so the next thing I want to do is, now that I got that working, I probably want to, there's certain ways I like to format things. So I am going to tweak that a little bit on the message style. And that's just because I like formatting things certain ways. So right now we have this channel and text, but you can actually do some more fancy things. So I'm going to do a little copy and paste of what I've done to create a more robust Slack message. Okay, like, oh, 2 equals. And so here, and I think this is really useful, is you can set the name of who's posting this. And so I usually use the name of the service, in this case, distill.io. You can also assign an icon emoji. And if you've never done that, this emoji, this icon right here, can be replaced by an emoji. And you can upload your own emojis. So I uploaded one for Distilio. So if I do, in my case, Distilio, I made that icon, and I can use that as the user icon. And then you can set what channel it's going to be. And then you can have attachments. And if you do attachments, it allows you to do some different things where you can actually split the screen in two. You can do different colors and values and ranges. And so in this case, I'm going to use the color danger, which is red. And since this is monitoring websites, I'll give it a title, website change, and then the actual value of what's going to be in there. Although we're going to tweak this as we go along. Right now, I'm not using any event data. I'm just using that right now. And so I'll save that. And so if I run that from here, I can confirm my format is working. And there we go. So I got my icon, I got my name, Distilio, and I got, hey, website is changed, and I got that little red bar. And so that's a kind of a format I prefer. You can do all kinds of other cool things, but that's a little snazzier format than just being just bare text. Okay, so the next thing we got to do, well, I might as well go right now. The Distilio is still monitoring, so I might as well go update my page to a 4th test and see if it triggers off. 4th test. Okay. So we'll save that. We'll see it did change. And then I can come down here and just put test so you can see the difference there. And let's see, which 443. So what's the date right now? 451. So it should just be a couple minutes. We should have that pinging through. But in the meantime, we actually want to pull event data from there. So we can start pulling the events. Let's see. There we go. So what we want to do, well, I'll let this event go through just so we get the webhook to actually trigger an event. There we go. And it finally triggered an event. Cool. So now that we know that's working, we know that we actually triggered an event. We actually now want to pull data out of that event to actually post in the Slack room. So in this case, I can actually go to any of the old ones and open this up. And I don't need the latest, but here's the body of what's sent to me. And what this is, it actually is sending JSON out, but it actually, in this case, the not the Lambda, the gateway is taking that and format it in such a way that it can be part of a JSON, is stringifying it basically. And so I need to get that information, unstringify that and get the information out. In my case, I want to get, well, I can get probably the name and the URI are probably going to be information that I care about right now. But what I'll do is I'll come here and I'll go back to my code. And what I can do is I can start to try to pull that data out. So that data is part of the event. And so I do var body. That's the body of the code that's coming, the JSON that's coming to me. And I'll say JSON.parse. And I will just parse the event body. Because that's the stuff that's being sent by Distilio. So now that I have that, I can actually pull it apart. So I can say, I know there's a name in there. And so I'll say body.name. And I know there's a URI in there. And I'll say body.uri. Body.uri. Okay, so now that I actually have those, I can do something with them. So I can come down here to the title, the website's changed, and I can say, yeah, I'll just do that. So I'll come down here and say, rather than the value, I'll say URI plus URI to actually get that actual URI out. And then from here, I can you can't put carriage returns in Slack and it will understand them. So I can do that, and I can do body and plus, I don't want the text, I want the URI. I want the URI and I want the name. There we go, title. Let me fix this again. I'm looking at my other notes over here. So we have a title, and I'll say name plus website change. There's the UI and body. Oh yeah, let me get the body in here. So body plus body there. So let me, text, sorry. Text. So I'll come down here and say var text. I'll pull the text out. Equals body dot text. And I'm also a little worried about this text getting too long, so I was going to do a substring. In my case, I mean, that's just up to you. 120. There you go. So that should work. So we'll save that. And now that I'm doing that, if I try to curl it, if I try to just curl it by hand, I will still hit the tool, but now the tool expects a post of a bunch of data. So I get this error. I can post the data. Let me see if I can do an example of that. Let me see. There we go. So there's an example of a post. Let me hit this actual URL. Okay, so I'll do a little curl test to make sure this is working. So we'll go boom, boom, boom. So this will probably give me back an error because I don't have all the details yet in that JSON object I'm sending it to it. Yep, not closed properly. We had an error in there. So I could go in there and say, I need, what do I need? I need name, URI, and text. So I say name, test, name, and URI, test, URI. And I think that should work. Or not. Okay, now I'm curious. Now I want to fix that and get a curl working correctly. So let me comment those out. Oh, I'm not. Point that out. Okay, now that should work. Not what I want, but it should work. Okay, let me go investigate why that's not working specifically. Okay, I figured out my problem. I don't know how to use curl properly. A post should have been capitalized rather than lowercase. That's my problem. I did go back and change one bit of my code though, because my response is telling them that I'm going to send a JSON back, and I wasn't. I was sending that OK. So I decided just to make a status OK JSON object and send that back in the body as to stringify. So hopefully that should pass it on in the correct format. But anyway, okay, so let me test this out with a curl and passing in a JSON object similar to what should be passed in from Distilio. So I have a name, test name, URI, test URI, text, and test text. So that should come through. And I got the status OK. If I go over here and look at it, it looks like it all came through just fine. So now I need to go change my page and wait for it to get sent. And then once that's done, that should kind of be everything. So save that. Go back and see that it did change. In this case, when's the last time you ran? Ran at 4:53, and it's oh, that can't be right. Oh, 5:13. There we go. Ran at 5:13, so it should be running here in just a few minutes. And then I should be getting that information from the event. So I should see coming through, I should see for the name, I should see the website name and the URI and the text, the first 120 characters. Boom, there we go. Perfect. Cool, it came through. So, and I got the message. So my page website changed. So actually, it was actually called my page. So it actually got that field. The URI, that's the URI, and the body, test 10/13. This site just is just here for testing purposes. And so that's the text it sent. And perfect. So I can actually click on that for convenience and open it up. There's a lot of other cool things you could do in there. But anyway, so there you go. So there's an easy way to set up a Amazon Web Services Lambda to kind of serve as an intermediator for webhooks, outgoing webhooks and incoming webhooks to Slack. Because you have to change the language, so you have to change the message so it's Slack compatible, and so that worked. Cool. Well, anyway, hope this video helps someone out there to do similar things. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give it a like. To subscribe, just click the subscribe button. Also, you can follow me on Twitter under the handle @whiteboardcoder.com. View any code I may have thrown up as a gist at GitHub under the username PatmanDenver. Or check out my blog site at whiteboardcoder.com.